This is the most significant prospectus on greening that any British government has ever put to the British people, but that's really a comment on how little previous governments have done. As you say, Matt, 10 points, so let's open them out a little bit, because 6 of them are really very aspirational. Prime Minister talks about mass carbon capture, lots of jobs in the northeast and Humberside, putting enormous amounts of carbon and storing it under the North Sea. New, smaller scale nuclear and hydrogen, a competition to power one town entirely by hydrogen. All of that relatively unproven technology at scale, you have to say. There are other aspirations making London a green global financial hub. Well, few in the UK would argue with that. And also some encouraging words, of course, about electric public transport and cycling. So the real key 4 things to take away are these. Let's have a look at them. First of all, offshore wind, quadrupling the output to power every home in the UK by 2030. Electric cars, that's the headline grabber. A ban on selling petrol and diesel cars by 2030, new cars. Homes, big polluters, our gas boilers, our gas boilers and our oil central heating. 50,000 jobs there, 600,000 conversions to green central heating by 2028. And nature, of course, a great sequester and store of carbon. 30,000 hectares a year of forests to be planted. OK, well, we're in the West Midlands in a car plant where we've been talking today about that headline grabber. It really is, to use the Prime Minister's favourite phrase, a world beater. I think it's fair to say the Irish, the Germans and the Dutch want to make the same kind of timetable to cut out old-style petrol and diesel cars. The Norwegians are slightly ahead. We've been seeing what manufacturers themselves actually make of it right here.
Coventry, car country. The LEVC assembly plant. Electric taxis and vans coming to life in the West Midlands. He's holed up today, but he came here during the election, all right. Fully electric by 2030? Easy.
For the last 3 years, our company is not producing diesel vehicles anymore. No diesel vehicles for the last 3 years, but only electric vehicles. So we are well prepared for that. And of course, we support the government direction.
A sceptical AA says banning new petrol and diesel cars by 2030 is ambitious. Honda claims it risks making driving the privilege of the rich. And here too, the boss concedes the UK has a lot of work to do to make mass electric car travel a reality.
We need to build up and invest in a proper nationwide charging infrastructure as soon as possible. This has to happen. That's quite clear. What also will happen, and we need actually, is an improvement in battery technology, because at the moment the battery technology is still expensive, the range is limited.
So meet the revolution. Forget diesels standing with engines running. The era of green white van man begins here. And that is a matter of life and death.
It's not just that the way out of COVID is the way into thousands of green jobs. It's also this. COVID's killed around 52,000 people this year in the UK. But every year, almost as many people are being killed prematurely by air pollution, in good measure from old-style, dirty vehicles.
Decarbonising cars, tough. Houses, tougher still. Our gas and oil central heating is one of our biggest carbon polluters. The Prime Minister promises 50,000 jobs, 600,000 homes and buildings converted a year to green heating by 2028.
It's not enough, but oh my God, it's a good start. I mean, I think we have to remember that this is something that we haven't really made much progress at all, despite it being on the list of things to do for a long time. We've got to make those buildings more energy efficient. We've got to then install low carbon heat solutions in those buildings.
Offshore wind energy output is set to quadruple, though that's not new money. But there's nothing for land turbines or solar farms. And there's little by way of strategy to prevent the destruction of peat bogs, better than rainforests for storing our carbon. There is, however, the promise of 30,000 hectares a year of forest planting.
The 30,000 hectares of new woodland that are promised each year in the Prime Minister's plan is really worthwhile. I mean, it is probably at the bottom end of what we think we will need to get to net zero, but as a plan for the UK, I think that's one of the better elements of the strategy.
True, the government is spending 25 times more on HS2 than on this so-called green revolution. But there are real strides here, and crucially, the message to private sector investment will be received and understood. Put it this way, a few years back, David Cameron reportedly talked about green crap. Boris Johnson talks about green revolution. The Tories, the government, are making a journey.
Well, they're also putting down a marker, of course. We stand a year out from the vital climate conference coming up in Glasgow, the COP conference in November next year. What the government is doing here is saying, look, we're co-hosts of this, so come on. China, what have you got on the table? In time, the US, what have you got on the table when Joe Biden gets into the White House? India, what have you got? It's all about setting that momentum for the agenda come Glasgow in 1 year's time. Back to you.
Thanks, Alex. Well, earlier I spoke to the Business Minister, Nadeem Zahawi. His own department had calculated that it would cost some £70 billion a year to reach net zero carbon emissions. So I began by asking him whether the £12 billion earmarked by the government a year is really enough.
We now generate 36% of the whole of the planet's offshore wind energy generation. And we want to go even further. The Prime Minister wants every home in the country to be powered by offshore wind by 2030. We're also investing more in nuclear, both large and, of course, then the small modular reactors and the future of nuclear, which is the advanced modular reactors, and, of course, more in electric vehicles.
I just wondered to what extent this plan isn't so much a kind of strategic blueprint for the future and more about wishful thinking, a laundry list of wishful thinking, because you mentioned nuclear technology here. A lot of the emphasis will be on small nuclear reactors. Now, we know how difficult and how costly nuclear technology is, and those small reactors that you're talking about, they haven't even been designed yet. They don't exist yet.
If you looked at the actual details of the announcement, you'll see that we are also signalling very clearly that we're going to invest in large nuclear as well. Now, we've got the energy white paper that we will publish very soon, followed by a hydrogen strategy with the Hydrogen Council that we have put together. So, as I say, these are all parts of the roadmap to get to net zero.
So, basic issues here. For instance, you want to move 25 million, gas boilers, to other types of boilers, within a fairly short period of time. You want to move everyone onto electric cars. To the ordinary consumer, saving the earth might cost them the earth. So how do you square that?
If you look at the cost of a battery for a car 9 years ago, it was around $77,000. It's come down dramatically in the last 9 years to about $11,000. And actually, the more we invest, so we're investing £500 million in a gigawatt factory so that we can produce the batteries that will go into the vehicles that will be zero emissions. The more you produce, the lower the cost comes down, which is why it's not just good for the environment, it's good for business, because as we continue to invest, as we continue to signal to the world that we are the first country that will get to net zero by 2050, because we're the first country to legislate for it and take it really seriously, then the investment will follow. And as we've done with offshore wind, with, of course, solar as well, where the prices have dropped dramatically. And so we'll do the same with ground source heat pumps. We're looking to deliver 600,000 heat pumps by 2028.
If I'm one of those voters in a constituency that used to vote Labour for a century and has now lent the Tory party my vote, to quote Boris Johnson, how can you assure me that these ambitious plans won't cost me the earth, will not bankrupt me effectively?
First of all, if you're driving a petrol or diesel car, you can continue to do that. We're not banning the current stock of vehicles. It is in 2030, the ban will be on new car sales. The industry has welcomed the ambition. In terms of vans as well, we have a big ambition to work with the sector. You've seen LEVC, a brilliant, innovative company, produce the first electric van. So all these things will become more affordable because we will build the market for them. You will see a reduction in cost and therefore better value for the consumer, for people, and doing the right thing for the planet.